I mean, welcome to Signal Quest with BVHK. And you are one of the reasons why this podcast is happening in the first place. So glad to have you on this.
Yep, happy to be here, Harish.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I think it's going to be one of the most difficult questions for you to answer. But if you were to describe yourself, what all would you say about what you are doing, who you are, what you're all about?
Okay. It is difficult. Yeah. I should start with the basics, which is that, I'm a software engineer. I studied computer science first in IIT Bombay and then did a PhD in the US, worked in the software industry for a long time. But then along the way, I also got interested in other things. And what I did was that around maybe 10, 12 years ago, I and a co-founder, we started a company. And although it did get product market fit pretty quickly, we don't like managing other teams, so other people. And that's why we have kept it as a lifestyle business, but that means that it leaves us enough time to explore other interests, right? So my other interests include, I've created a YouTube channel. I like teaching. I do teaching in a bunch of situations. I do consulting, although the consulting is mostly in tech, my field, uh, and a bunch of other little things then. Yeah.
And I know that you also teach a lot, right?
Yeah. 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 Teaching at different levels. Yes.
Okay. So, one question that pops up in my mind, when you are so comfortable with children and you have always optimized for interestingness, again something that no for a fact. Why did the thought of managing a team, as an interesting problem to solve? Did that never occur to you that okay, let me take this up as a challenge, and is there an interesting way to solve this problem?
So no, I mean, basically, I don't want to take that particular thing up as a challenge, right?
Hmm.
So when I say optimize for interesting, I'm not really sitting down and making a list of pros and cons of is this interesting or not.
Hmm.
It is kind of happening instinctively for me.
Hmm.
And just given my background and my personality and my mental makeup, uh, becoming a good manager did not sound interesting to me, right? There
Okay.
were just so many other things that were more interesting.
Okay. Okay. So, what was the last thing when you took up, which fared well on the interestingness, but had you thought of it earlier, you would have said, no, this is not who I am. But once you started, you realized, oh, this is really interesting.
Um, I mean, you could just say the YouTube channel, all right? I mean, I never really thought, I mean, I never watched videos a whole lot. I never really thought I would like doing videos. But in some sense, I pushed myself to do that because, over time, I began to feel that more and more the world is moving towards video, and I am sort of left in the text world. So that part I needed to push myself a little bit. And now that I am doing it, I like creating the videos.
Okay. So, you like creating the videos. How about consuming videos?
I still don't like consuming videos. So even now, mostly if I'm forced to consume a video, I will try to use AI to convert it into a transcript and read that.
What would you think to think? Not that I was on the other side, but what do you think will, get you more interested in video consumption? Or what is it that
See,
is makes it easy for text consumption?
see, it's difficult, right? Basically, the thing is that video forces you to watch it at its speed, right? I mean, sure, people do, watch at 1.5x and 2x and so on, but that's a single setting.
Right.
Whereas with text, I can change the speed automatically per paragraph, right? Which I can't do in videos, at least not easily. And plus I can, I'm reading some paragraph and I suddenly say, oh, wait, I need to go back to the previous paragraph and check something more
Mm.
carefully. All of these things in video are far more difficult, right? That's just because ultimately video is a one-dimensional medium, whereas text is in some sense two-dimensional. So
Right.
yeah.
So what did you learn about video creation that you never thought about earlier? That well, this is something which I never even considered.
I would answer this two different ways. Things that I never really considered were how much things matter, which I had not uh, thought of at all, like thumbnails
Yes.
for the video, the graphics that show up on the screen at different times, right? What title you give it. Those things I had not expected them to matter so much. Right?
Mm.
A different thing that I sort of knew about, but still it came as a shock when I actually saw it happening, was the amount of effort that goes into pre and post production, right? It's not just a question of, you know, me or two guys sitting in front of the camera and talking, but there is just way too much work that happens in just setting up the studio and the lighting and the audio and the cameras and this and that, and then in the editing. I mean, easily 10x the amount of work.
Okay.
So, I mean, I knew it is a lot of effort. I didn't realize it was 10x.
Mhm. And would you think you not being a heavy
Yeah.
consumer of video, did that put you at a disadvantage in, becoming a good producer of video?
Probably does even now, right? So, right now, in terms of what I am supposed to do on video to make it more engaging, what make it more interesting,
Mm.
is not something I instinctively know because I don't consume videos very regularly or at all. In some sense, I go by my instinct, which might be very much off, and then I go by the feedback that my co-host and the producers give me.
Right, right, right. And an extension to this is social media, right? Uh,
Yeah,
lot of different apps that we have. For example, in my mind, Instagram would be similar to where you
yeah,
with video or you're still with video.
yeah,
I have a handle, but I hardly ever sort of open it. You
yes.
had sent me a message many months ago, which I saw months later, right? Uh, again, when you feel that you need to be there on all these apps to just know what is happening there. Is there a sense of FOMO? Is there a sense of, oh, I can do better? Of course, you cannot keep up with everything, but
Yeah.
is there anything that, I mean, how do you treat this whole social media thing?
So I have a little bit of a split personality around that question, right? Uh, to some extent, I do feel that I should be there on some of these. I do feel that if I were to spend much more time on Instagram and post on Instagram more regularly, I would reach a different kind of audience and I would be able to collect and understand the youngsters better.
Mm.
Uh, and that's there with all of these forum, different medium. But at the same time, I also know and realize that to do any one channel well is a lot of work, and that each channel, each social medium requires its own style. Right?
Correct.
I can't take one post and then just have it auto posted to all of them. That just
Mm.
is not the right way of doing things, right?
Mm. Mm.
So as a result, I know that one of the most important, uh, I guess, principles in life is to not take on too many things, do a good job of a few things rather than doing like a whole bunch of things in a half-assed way.
Mm.
So that is why I just do one or two well and then let the others be.
Right. And what are your preferred channels?
I mean, number one is Twitter. of course, there is YouTube and LinkedIn to some extent, right? So basically, you can think of it as two and a half.
In 2.5. That's interesting. And you would not put newsletters and Substack under this.
Oh yeah, well, actually, so newsletters, blogging is also uh, one of these. Yes.
Mhm.
Uh, so uh, yeah, Twitter, blogging, YouTube, and half of LinkedIn.
Okay, okay. And do you have an intuitive structure of how much of my time should go, how much of my time is going into each of these mediums? Is it deliberate or is it just again very instinctive?
Uh, so mostly instinctive, but there are a few deliberate pieces there. So, for example, the YouTube channel, I had been thinking about it for about maybe 6, 7 years that I should be doing this and never got around to doing it because it's a lot of work. I just don't have the discipline to do it and so on. And then finally, what happened was essentially a commitment device, right? So I got together with Shrikant, and then two of us got together with video school, which does the production. And we just committed that we are going to do this channel. And now we have a schedule that one video and a couple of shorts go out every week. So then it is all very deliberate as to how much has to happen in every week. When we started, I didn't put aside a specific amount of time for it, but just roughly we decided that this much effort we are going to put in terms of output. And now over time, the inputs needed for that have settled down to a certain amount of time per week. And that is deliberate for the YouTube. For everything else, it is instinctive. Although for the blogging, I am trying to be a little more deliberate about it. So now I have set aside a small amount of time per week that has to go into blogging because I think it is a high leverage activity which I need to put more effort into. And that if I just left it to instinct, it won't happen. Or I mean, I've seen it not happen for like 15 years. So some deliberateness there.
Okay, okay. And especially with YouTube, right?
So
What have been the enriching experiences that came as a result of you being the YouTuber, which otherwise would not have happened? Would be meeting people, having some kind of
yeah.
interactions, experiences.
Well, I mean, the most important one I think is not directly related to the people. It is related to how to quickly get to the point, right? So the feedback I kept getting from video school, the people who do this, and they're the experts in running video channels, is that YouTube is a very, very competitive world. And the competition is happening on the user screen where they can quickly flip to the next video, right? So you have a very short amount of time in which you have to grab their attention. Okay. But fundamentally, neither I nor the rest of the team believes in doing clickbaiting. Okay. I mean, you don't make claims which you are not going to uh, actually deliver during the video, right? So then that becomes a very interesting challenge, right? So how do you? I mean, I know an idea that this is the idea that I want to explain in this video, and usually it is not something very simple or alien. It is like a little involved, but in the first 2 or 3 sentences I still have to grab attention and get them interested in that idea without it being misleading. So every week we end up time. I mean, every week we end up spending time thinking about that, and that has given me that has been useful elsewhere also, right? Because I mean, in everything else we do, everybody is busy, and getting to the point quickly is important.
And
So that's the most important thing I learned. And yes, of course, the other thing. is that the people, the people who have been reached via this videos, it has been very enriching. It has been very heartful. Uh, the interesting thing with every social medium is that each one reaches a different audience, right? With Twitter, I was doing Twitter for a long time and reaching a whole bunch of people. And when I came to YouTube, it was just a completely different second, different kind of people. So that was the other interesting thing. And third is just that, because of this, then people reach out to me also one on one, and I've ended up meeting a bunch of interesting people as a result.
Mhm. And is there an overlap between people who are your Twitter followers, Substack subscribers, as well as YouTube hardcore followers, or is it completely mutually exclusive?
Well, of course, there is an overlap.
Hmm.
There is some overlap, but it is far less than what you.
Okay, okay. So then, in your mind, do you also have a rubric of, oh, this is what I will keep only for Twitter, this is what I will keep only for, both in terms of content as well as the way you are you posting it?
So there is an instinct there, right? So if you asked me to write it down just now, I don't know if I would be able to articulate it, but I do have, instinctive judgment. As in, when there is an idea that comes up, I know that, oh, this one can go on YouTube, this one can't. This one can go on Twitter, it can't go on the Substack, and so on, right? So that is there. And of course, there might be some ideas which can go on all of them, but not always. The second thing is that once I've decided that this idea goes here, then how I explain it is quite different in the three or four. Like,
But do you think you had this instinct, you know, right from the start, or you sort of developed and honed it over a period?
uh, developed over a period of time. I mean, I mean, when starting the YouTube channel, there was some deliberation as to whom we are targeting, at what level, and so on, right?
Hmm.
That is, of course, a fairly important decision, because the content would have been very different if we had taken a different decision at the time. But that is just sort of a starting point. Then, as you put things out and you see what the reactions are and what comments people are leaving and how generally it is being received, then the instinct develops automatically as to what this particular audience wants.
And you also look at analytics, maybe YouTube, definitely yes, because you're also working with someone, but about say a Substack or uh, not even.
So, Substack, I don't look at the analytics at all, right?
Oh,
So, Substack, I just write what I feel like writing. YouTube, I mean, the team looks at the analytics very carefully, because it is, pretty much their job.
right.
They look at it very carefully, and every once in a while, they will tell me some of those things. Uh, I don't get direct uh, all the details, like, but some picture things. And Twitter, again, I try not to look at the analytics. So it's just that every once in a while, I might notice that this tweet has more views or this tweet has more comments and so on. But again, not a whole lot of effort going in that.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. And what are out of all these things sort of helps you in your teaching? And even in teaching, there are all
Mm.
kinds of people that you
Yeah,
teach to, right?
yeah, yeah,
From students at Gen Y's,
sure.
online workshops that we have done. Do what you're doing in IIT, where
Yeah.
when you're teaching. So then, how does that sort of trans?
Just one clarification. Right now, I am not yet teaching at IIT Bombay. Right now, I am just advising some students and also committees and so on. I will teach part of a course later this year, but that is still going to be an outreach course. So it is not for IIT Bombay students. It will be for people outside.
Right.
But coming back to the original question, pretty much all of these things help with teaching in different ways, right? So the YouTube has helped in making my teaching a little more focused. I mean, earlier, one of the biggest complaints I used to get from my family, because they're the only ones who will really complain, was that I was too long-winded and boring. Right? So hopefully some of that is reducing because of YouTube. Also because of the YouTube, uh, I usually have a better set of examples to give, because for each episode there is some effort that is going into the examples and analogies, right? Uh, in Twitter, uh, is very helpful in terms of getting ideas, new things, the trends. What I should be teaching mostly comes from Twitter, and depth comes from Substack.
Okay, okay, that's very interesting. And what you teach is also quite varied, right? So how do you
Yeah.
also then pick your mind and say, okay, what is it that I should go and teach? Are you optimizing
Uh,
your interest or are you optimizing for the student's interest?
it's a little of both.
Mm.
There are a couple of things I look at. I mean, it's instinct. Right? Again, you're not making a very elaborate and thought out decision, but instinctively.
Mm.
What is happening is that usually when I learn something new, right, I have an instinctive feeling of how interesting this is. In terms of how much did this surprise me, how much did this change my mind, and how important this is, how much it is going to change my behavior in the or understanding of something in the future, right? So that is one parameter of, let's just call it interestingness or level of insight. The second thing is, um, you know, how well known this is. Okay. So something that pretty much everyone has learned or everybody knows, then there's no point in teaching that. Whereas something that most people don't know about, I didn't know about when I first heard it, and now I can see that most people don't know, then there is a high chance that I would want to teach that. And one of the best ways of finding that out is what talking to people or trying to explain that to a friends or on Twitter or something. I can tell whether this came as a surprise to them or they already knew that. So that is the second thing that I look at. And the third one is, can I teach it? Right? Because in my mind, I have a very clear idea of how something needs to be explained so that people will understand. Uh, and if I can't see a very easy way of getting there quickly, again, from the YouTube, I know that I can't take half an hour to get to the point where they start showing an interest, right? It has to, some example has to come right in the beginning so that they're, oh yeah, I need to know this. So for example, there is this concept uh, called base layers by Stuart Brand. I think it is very important. I think almost nobody knows this, but I haven't found a good way of explaining it. So I'm not teaching that yet. Similarly, there's the concept of shelling point, which I see everywhere. I think it's a fairly important concept, but it's still a little nebulous. I can't figure out a way of teaching it crisply in a way where I'm not going to just ramble when I'm teaching it. And so that is also something that I'm looking at teaching. And there is one little thing which is more selfish, which I use for teaching, right? So if there is a topic which I think that, you know what, I need to learn this better, the best way to do it is to announce that 2 months from now I'm going to teach it to someone, and then that force to put in the effort to learn it over the next 2 months.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to teaching, right, is it like they do the kind of strength studies, right? So learner and intellection are two strengths. Uh,
Mm.
do you take it to implementing and practicing and adopting these concepts in your behavior? And how serious are you about these things? Because you're also learning so many things and you're teaching so many things. Not all of them
Yeah.
irrelevant. Not
Yeah,
within maybe possible also. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
have you given thought to that?
A little bit of thought, right? So, basically, um, it is a little of everything, right? So there are things that are aspirational that I know that this would be really helpful if I did it, and I should be doing it. I can't, don't necessarily have the discipline to do it all the time. But if I've done it a little bit and I know that it works, and that if I had the discipline and I did it, then it would really make an impact. I will still teach it in the hope that other people have different levels of discipline, or different need to push on something, right? So I'll still teach it, and of course, that's a whole bunch of things that I teach because I do them and I found them very, very useful.
Mm.
Uh, in the second category would be spaced repetition memory, right? That I find it extremely useful. So I try to teach it to a lot of people and usually don't succeed in the sense that most of the people I have taught it to or introduced people to, most of them have not adopted it themselves, right? So, yeah.
Something like space repetition, right? When did you first learn about it?
I learned about it from the writings of Michael Nielsen via Twitter, and he has written a bunch of fairly detailed articles about the theory and the practice.
Mhm.
Why it works and how to use it practically in day-to-day life to do far more than just memorizing facts. Right? Most people think of uh, spaced repetition as, oh, you're trying to memorize facts, or in Duolingo you're trying to memorize vocabulary,
Mm.
but that's not the most important use. Michael Nielsen has lots of examples showing how you can use it to learn and remember even concepts at fairly higher level things. So one of the most interesting uses I ran across was Michael Nielsen and oh, sorry, what's his name? I'm really sorry, lacking on his name, but uh, two of them created this website to explain quantum computing. Okay, and they incorporated spaced repetition memory into the site itself. And at that time, I was able to learn and understand quantum computing. Before that, I think about three different times in my life, I had tried to understand quantum computing and then just gave up because just too many concepts were getting introduced at the same time, and I was not able to keep up. And only spaced repetition made it happen. And in all of this, it was not fact that needed to be memorized, but conceptual things.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So again, one question to go one step before this, right? So, do you have a process for delivering subsetting of new topics and ideas that you are not aware of? Do you really go somewhere and say, okay, let me check out the latest papers somewhere? Or
No,
just random something popping up, but this is interesting, I'm curious about this, go down that
no,
rabbit hole.
the only deliberate practice I have is to follow interesting people on Twitter or Substack. Right?
Mm.
I use Substack, but it's more general blogging, right?
Mm.
So I have some process there to find and follow interesting people, and that's it. Then I'm consuming my blogs and my Twitter, and interesting things keep popping up. Right? And so, what has happened after I started my YouTube channel is that I have become much more deliberate about taking notes. Earlier, I would just keep listening to concepts, and if a concept showed up in my feeds uh, often enough, so just through spaced repetition, I would then become familiar with that concept.
Right.
But after the YouTube channel, Now I have become a little more deliberate about, okay, when I learn an interesting concept, I'm like, okay, is this interesting enough? Yeah, I should put it in my notes.
And when you say put it in my notes, is it pen, paper, notes?
I don't even touch pens, except signatures. Everything is online. In my case, it is something that most other people can't use. I use Emacs, which is an editor from like, 40 years ago.
And,
Uh, I mean, fraction of people use it, but I have learned enough of it so that for me it is extremely powerful.
and,
But within Emacs, what I have is an implementation of a note-taking system called Roam.
right.
If you, without Emacs, want to get the same thing, you can just look up Roam. I
Mm.
think it's called research.
Right.
Uh,
Rules.
and I think one important point I should point out is that the actual note-taking system doesn't matter as much as the fact that there should be some system
Right.
for a few reasons. One is that different systems work for different people, right? For some people, an actual notebook works much better than anything else. For some people, it will be Notion or Obsidian or just, Apple Notes or
Mm.
something.
Yeah.
Uh, the second thing is that a lot of times the act taking a note is far more important than even going back and looking at it later, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can take notes and never look at the note again, and yet it will be useful. Right?
And,
Just the fact that you decided to write it down, and while writing, you spent some time thinking about, okay, how best do I articulate it in one small note?
and,
That is enough to put it in a different part of your memory and give it a different level of salience in your brain.
right. Right. Um, you keep coming across so many interesting things, and you keep adding
Hmm,
things to do,
hmm.
pursuits to follow. So,
Yeah.
have you replaced something that you used to do earlier?
Um, Probably, right? I mean, these days I don't watch any news at all. I watch very little TV. Number of movies has also reduced significantly. What else? I mean, right now I'm blanking on other things, but surely a whole bunch of other activities from earlier, which I would now consider a waste of time,
Mm.
have gone away and been replaced by this.
Right. Coming back to your movies, right? Uh, how much of a loss has it been?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, right?
Mm.
I mean, in some sense, what has happened in recent times is that we watch more serials than movies on streaming services. Uh, I find that better because, in a series, they get more time to go into whatever the subject in a little
Mm.
more depth.
Mm. Right.
And of course, the movie becomes popular enough or famous enough. Enough of my friends are talking about it. I will watch it, of course.
Mhm. Right. And many movies also in the past, were you the types who would go and, check out interesting movies, even if they're of a different language, from a different country? Was that something that was, there as part of your movie, watching it?
No, not a whole lot. I was not ever a world movie kind of a person. But
Mhm.
just within the languages I understand, Hindi and English, there was a time then where I would keep track of all the movies that are coming out and what are the reviews and which one is interesting, which is really good enough to watch, and so on, right? So I would pretty much, even if I didn't watch all the movies, I would know about every movie, every important movie that has come out, right? So yeah, that is one of the things that has gotten replaced, like we were
Mhm.
talking. These days, I don't do that. I don't go out of my way to know what has released and how good is it. It is. It's just that if enough people talk about it uh, in a positive way, then I will decide to check it out and then watch it.
Right. And what about books?
Book uh, is roughly at the same level that it has always been. Uh, what has changed in recent times is that there are, and one is, of course, that a lot of my book recommendations of what I want to read, they come from my consumption, right? So from my Twitter and my newsletters. Uh, Based on, okay, this person said that this book is really interesting, and now I have a history of knowing the kinds of things this person talks about, so uh, then this book would be interesting to read, right? So that is one thing that has happened. But an opposite thing that has happened is that at least on in the blogging world, there are a lot of people who write really good, really detailed reviews of books. And sometimes I decide that this review is good enough. I don't need to actually. Uh, because, again, one of the problems that books suffer from is that, as this is for non-fiction I'm talking about, right? Is that the publishing industry is such that if you have an idea which is roughly 30 pages worth of an idea, you can't publish a 30-page book. You still have to fit it out to 200, 400 pages. Whereas an article which is roughly 30 pages worth of content captures the important parts of the book in any case, right? So some of my book reading has been replaced by just reading the articles, but also new books, new kinds of books that I might not have read otherwise or might not even have found out about. I do now know because of all this.
One, idea that I've always maintained about book reading is that the value of the book is not in the content of the book, especially if you've read a lot of books. Most of the themes and there's not a lot of new things that you will learn from the book. But
Yes.
the act of reading the book almost forces you to spend that time thinking about that topic
Yes.
and I felt, the maximum value of the book. So I've been picking books based on that. This is a topic
Yeah.
and I want to spend some time thinking on. So that
Yeah.
the book then becomes the backdrop for my, thinking on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a fairly important thing, right? And in some sense, you can tie it into the spaced repetition. So if you're going to spend time with the book, then it is about a topic and related subtopics. And you spend enough time with them, then the same things you are revising again and again over the period that you are reading the book. So that helps. In case of the books that I said, I end up not reading those books. What does happen is that the book and ideas from the book get repeated in different articles by different people or even in tweets. And so some of that happens kind of automatically just through being part of the discourse on that topic, right? So, for example, Seeing Like a State is a book that I haven't read, but it just shows up again and again so many times that I have a fairly decent idea of what the central pieces of the book is. I also have an idea of what the weaknesses of the book are. And now the core idea is well established in my mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a book that I purchased based on hearing about it from you. Haven't read it until now.
Yeah.
You have pointed out, the reviews for me to go through first.
Yeah.
What about podcasts? Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Not a lot. Okay, so basically, the only time I listen to podcasts is when I'm exercising. Uh, because any other time, the problems that I mentioned with video occur in podcasts also because I can't control the speed at which it is happening. So, if I am sitting at a computer or I'm just sitting, I have control over the screen, I would anyway, any day prefer text. But during exercise and say during car rides, long car rides, I don't have control, right? Plus, there are other things I'm doing. So at that time, a podcast works well.
And in terms of learning, new things in general,
Oh,
uh,
oh,
how, how much of a role do all the AI tools now play in your learning that?
huge, right? Not in terms of finding what topics to learn, right? That is still happening from my feeds. When I say feeds, I am talking primarily about my Twitter, my Substacks.
Mhm.
Um, so, what topics are interesting, what topics are important, what topics are insightful, that comes from there, right?
Mhm.
But every so often, what happens is that there is some topic which somebody will describe in a way that I don't quite understand. It is like, about my level. So, for example, Bern Hobart, who writes the Dip, he writes about financial concepts.
Mhm.
And, at a fairly high level, where often I don't understand what he's talking about, but I understand enough to know that this is interesting, that I should find out. So then I will go and get an LLM to explain it to me. So that is one thing. Second is that if I've decided uh, that a topic is important enough that I want to do a video about it or I want to write an article about it, then again, I will use an LLM to research it, to get good examples, to get counter examples, weaknesses, and things like that. I never use an LLM to do the writing for me. All the writing I do, and even for the videos, the script is ours. But for fleshing out the ideas and examples, I use LLMs extensively.
And in what other ways have, LLMs changed how you live and operate?
Uh, the most important change is that I have become more ambitious. Right? Things that I would not have considered doing because that's too much effort. Or the amount of effort is not worth the ROI that I had in mind. Now suddenly are within reach. All right. Things that I would not have considered just because they seemed like, well, I don't really know these things and I don't know if I will do it correctly and so on. Now there is an LLM to handhold me through the process.
Mhm.
And so I am willing to try it out. Right. So just that LLM has increased my confidence in trying out new things and in reduced the amount of effort in new initiatives, new things, as a result of which I'm doing much more.
Give me examples of these.
So for example, let me think. Mm, Say for example, teaching, right? Earlier, if I wanted to teach something, it would take me I would be much more careful about saying, am I going to teach this subject or not? Because, how long it will take me to learn it to a level where it is good enough that I can teach it
Mhm.
was very different earlier. And now it is much easier that I know that I can learn it much faster using an LLM, right? In terms of little things in day-to-day life, I can create programs to do some things automatically for me much faster. Or I can create programs now using LLMs. Earlier, I wouldn't have bothered because writing that program would take too much time. One example is that I had taken a lot of notes before I started using Rome for my notes. I had taken a lot of notes just in a regular text file. And now half my notes are in a regular text file, but I have found that Rome is a much better way of organizing my notes and making them searchable.
All right.
So ideally, I want to migrate my notes into Rome, the older
Mhm.
notes.
All right.
But it was just too big of an undertaking earlier. Now with Cloud Core, In an hour, I managed to write a script which can move them. And now I'm using that to slowly clean up and move the notes from the old system to the new system.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Something that struck me when you were talking about how YouTube has taught you to, get to the point very quickly, right?
Yeah,
Um, and you've written about this earlier, and I know for a fact about your board gaming, right? So board
yeah,
games would easily take any of the board games that if you talk about would easily 3 to 4 hours. It is almost like the Hindustani classical music, right? Where there is
yeah,
love and you need to get into the zone before you actually start really enjoying. It's almost like test cricket, right? Uh,
yeah.
so how do you manage your own personality between the two, and how do you I mean, is there a sense of contrast? How does it feel? Because I was speaking about that, like Middle East.
Yeah, yeah. See, I mean, I think if you just asked an arbitrary person, they would still say that I take too long to get to the point. Right. So just getting to the point slowly is my default, right? So I would think of it as usually when I'm in my YouTube mode, I am going to get to the trying to get to the point quickly, and that is a fairly scripted thing. Plus, I work with Shrikant on that, right? In other places, I'm completely comfortable getting to the point slowly. So, explaining a game taking 45 minutes for me is, I mean, it feels normal.
Right. So, board games generally, where how did you pick up, playing board games and how did it start?
So, about I think 28 years ago, we were in the US, and some friends introduced us to board games. And the first time with me and my wife Meeta, we played one of these games and we were blown away, right? Because before that, games were all in just two categories. Either a game is like Monopoly, completely mindless, you don't have to think, and it just goes on and it is just based on luck.
Mhm.
Or it is chess, where it is just all analysis, all analytics, and you could just spend half an hour on every move. And so when we first played one of these games, it was such a breath of fresh air. And we fell in love with that, right? So immediately over the next few years, we started buying more and more games. And then over the next 10, 12 years, I mean, these games are not or were not available in India at that time. Even now, very few are available, right? So over the next 10, 12 years, we continued being interested in it, and I would make trips to the US regularly for work. And every trip, I would bring back one or two new games. Right? So that's how that developed. And again, what we noticed over the years uh, is two things. One is that this is a very great social activity. These board games are designed so that it requires in person interactions, and they're designed to be interactive. It is not like chess where each one is just sitting there thinking about their own thing. You have to talk to other people, you have to negotiate, and they're games, and they're designed so that people at different skill levels with people of different ages can all play the same game together without one of them feeling left out because they are not as as at the same level of expertise for that game.
Well,
So this was a great way for get-togethers and activity with friends. Plus, we saw that every time we introduced it to someone, they also loved the concept. Right.
right.
So that's what hobby has grown.
Okay, okay. And have you tried to, steal game dynamics and apply it in either your teaching or something? Have you tried to cross-pollinate ideas?
Not very explicitly, but one of the things that has happened almost automatically is the fact that the rules for these games are written so well, right? That I have really liked, and I have found my, I subconsciously I have incorporated that, and that shows up in multiple places. In my teaching, of course, that, without thinking about it, I know that in the game, the rules, when they're explaining the rules, we'll start with, you know, this is the rule. Then there will be an example to clarify the rule. There might be two examples to clarify two different ways in which it can work out. And then there will be a bunch of, uh, more specific corner cases that are explained, because, every time it is like, oh, if this is there and this is there, then what happens? All these kinds of things, even in our textbooks, they are not explained clearly. Students have to sort of figure them out on their own by stumbling on them, or if they have a really good teacher. So this style of explaining something, me having read so many rule books of so many games, I think I have learned that a little bit, right? So in my teaching, it helps, but also in my work, because what I do is create question papers for job candidates, and there I have seen again and again that uh, writing the question in a way that a candidate is not going to misinterpret the question and answer a different question is extremely difficult. And that is something I have sort of learned from game rule books.
Right. In fact, yesterday I was listening to a podcast about ChatGPT's new study mode. And one of the
Yeah,
people that they should, not call it study mode, and they should call it a learning mode or something, because study
yeah,
mode sounds very serious and dramatic and all of that, which I sort of agree, right?
yeah.
But otherwise, LLMs in general have sort of simplified that aspect, right? Where a question is asked and immediate answer is given, rather
Oh,
than trying to figure out how they can learn something like
yes.
reduce that, over a period of time, you know, even adults, not just students, looking at getting these quick answers without really understanding why those answers are coming up and how those answers are coming up, and we will not be able to think of those nuances later.
Yeah,
Got an answer once, and they're going to apply the same,
yeah.
the for you.
So, yeah, I think this is going to be a big problem, at least in the short term, right? Because what happens is that if you are going to get ready-made answers, obviously that part of your brain which doesn't develop as much, that level of understanding doesn't develop. There is one very interesting concept called the illusion of learning, or the illusion of explanatory depth, right?
Yes.
If I ask you to draw, if I ask you, do you understand a bicycle? You think you'll be able to draw it? And most people feel very confident.
Right.
But then when you get them to actually draw it, you will see that this is like a really bad bicycle.
Correct.
And people don't really have a clue as to where exactly are the chair parts of a bicycle that good, right? So that's an illusion where you
Yes.
think you have understood
And
because somebody gave you an explanation
right.
that seemed nice and
Yes.
simple. What happens as a result is that when it comes time to apply this in real life, you start failing, right?
And
Either your application is shallow, the depth is missing, you can't handle the corner cases, uh, and that is going to be a problem in my work. I can see that that's a problem, right?
yes.
That people are just using ChatGPT blindly. If I give a question that ChatGPT stumbles upon, they have no clue what is wrong with their answer, because they've just assumed that whatever ChatGPT gave is fine. So, in fact, for questions that ChatGPT can't answer, performance has gone down, in the sense that that same question, I'm pretty sure that if they didn't have access to ChatGPT, they would have a slightly higher percent of people would have given a correct answer. But now there is a good chunk of people who are giving the wrong answer because they just didn't bother to even look at what ChatGPT generated. Right? So,
Yes.
what I think is going to happen is that over the next few years, or
Yes.
maybe it might take a little longer than that, is first, our culture of evaluation has to change, right? Right now, in an interview, we ask the question and that person gives an answer, and we assume that if they gave an answer that was approximately correct, then they're knowledgeable. But now, all it can mean is that they got an answer, they know what question to ask ChatGPT.
Right.
So, we might have to change it so that we have to make them actually do something complex which ChatGPT cannot do by itself. Or on at different levels, evaluation will change. And then once evaluation changes and people start failing at that evaluation, then slowly among regular people, a culture will develop of knowing which things you can take the answer from ChatGPT and which things you have to do yourself if you have to make it uh, real world.
So problems.
Take a little time.
Yeah. So problem solving in general, if you
Yeah.
think of it, what do you say? Any of these LLMs are good at problem solving today?
See, it depends on your definition of problem and the complexity of the problem, right? So, up till a certain level, these things are excellent at problem solving. But then beyond that level, they are suddenly very bad, right? And if you are the kind of person who relies on them for doing all your problem solving at the lower level, and then you start hitting the next level where they can't solve it for you and you have not learned any problem solving skills, then you are going to be in deep trouble, right? Because just basically think of it this way. Okay. College teaches a certain set of things to students. Okay. Now, today, a student who's passing out of college, the things they have learned, pretty much most of that can be done by ChatGPT.
Correct.
So now a student who chooses not to learn anything in college can still pass exams and clear first few rounds of interviews just with the help of ChatGPT, right? So because they are at the level of problem solving where ChatGPT can do it. Thing you have to realize is that nobody is going to give you a job and pay you money for doing things that ChatGPT can do.
Right.
You have to be able to do things that ChatGPT cannot do. And if you didn't learn that in college, there will be a few people who can pick it up on the fly by themselves and they will be valuable. But then there are a lot of people who will then struggle because they didn't learn the problem solving skills, right? And they're going to suffer.
And would there be avenues for them to actually go and learn these problem solving skills as well?
Um, I think some of those they have to create themselves. Over time, society will find out ways to create this, right? Because ultimately there is going to be demand for work that, say, imagine a company, right? It needs to do 100 things. 60 of those can be done by ChatGPT. It still needs people for the remaining 40, and there are not enough people. So what happens, right? I mean, you can take the example of Infosys from 10 years ago. Then people to write software, which college were producing students who couldn't write software. So Infosys spends months teaching the students themselves, right? The same thing will happen in a chat GPT. Right? Infosys will spend time teaching people how to use chat GPT and do the higher level of problems.
Right. I think, yeah, it's going to be.
People who spend time doing that in college will find it much easier, and people who's posted through college will struggle even in that period. And of course, after 5 years or 10 years, colleges will figure out what it is that they really need to teach.
Yeah, yeah. So I always give this example of, dumb charades there. A
Yeah.
lot of times people start with a line of thinking, and when the other person is not getting it, they just get stuck. That, oh, why aren't you getting this? Why aren't you getting this? They don't try to come up with alternative, options, and that's basically problem solving. And it's very
Yes.
interesting, that Federer actually uses the term problem solving so many times when he's talking about a tennis match. Uh,
Oh, okay.
is that
Interesting.
basically you are doing problem solving. And
Hmm.
in fact, he had criticized the younger players, saying that they just come in with they just have one,
Yeah.
hammer with which
Yeah.
down. And if for some reason it is not working, then they are
Yeah.
completely at sea because they don't have a
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
And reason that's what differentiates the, great side against the
Yeah.
good players and all of that. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting that problem solving is how in disciplines, tennis match.
No, that is fascinating. I've not heard this before, but very interesting. Yes.
Yeah. 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 So
This sounds like an interesting definition of problem solving is that you have multiple tools at your disposal, and given a complex situation, you should know which tool to use, and you have to be able to figure out which tool is going to work here, right?
right.
And that's what the higher level is going to be, where
Mhm.
ChatGPT is one of the tools. Uh, and at least for a few more years, colleges are not teaching that.
Right, right. And one of the tools that these people are going to have is their own brains. And if
Yeah, of
their
course.
tool is not sharp enough because, they only use ChatGPT till now. Then where ChatGPT fails, the only tool they have at their disposal is not good enough.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that's going to be the bigger problem. Yeah, yeah. So I think we are never going to end, run out
yeah,
of topics to talk about. But we have spoken for an hour, and I took only an hour today from you. So we will in this conversation today. I can promise you without any qualms that we're going to have multiple such, chats.
sure.
I just keep one, session every month for a chat like this. But before we go, couple of questions on which I want your hot take.
Sure.
One book that you re-give the most.
One book that I gift the most. Um, I don't know if there is one, right? There is one that I end up recommending to a large number of people, and that is What Color is Your Parachute, by Richard Ball, which is about teaching people how to look for jobs, how to find a job far more effectively because,
Yes.
you don't spend 16 years of your life learning the content of what you're going to do in a job, and you spend 0 years figuring out how to find the good job, right? So that is one. In terms of fiction, uh, varies. There's a bunch of different books, but uh, Ender's Game is up there. Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is another one that
Mhm.
is up.
From another thing, if you were to put up a billboard, of flex, in Pune and all other cities, what maximum 7 words would you put on that?
Spend hours every day using LLMs.
Okay. And then fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah. And but I was not expecting that. This lowest one. But good to note that. On that note, Naveen, thanks a lot for this conversation. And as always, it's always a pleasure and a privilege to be able to pick your brains. And you've been very gracious enough to answer all my questions. So thanks a lot.
yeah. Thanks for a stimulating conversation.